Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and Leap, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with test school and life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 60 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The fascinating topic we want to explore today is how to manage procrastination in the admissions process. But first, let's meet our special guest, Michelle McAnaney.
Michelle McAnaney is the founder of The College Spy, a full-service independent educational consulting firm that assists students and families with the college selection and application process. Prior to founding The College Spy, Michelle was a school counselor and educator for more than 15 years, including serving as the director of guidance at 2 high schools, an adjunct college professor, and a GED tutor. Michelle holds a master's degree in school counseling and a bachelor's degree in human development. She completed UC Irvine's certificate program in educational consulting. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Michelle, we are really happy to have you on the show to tackle a topic that we definitely should talk about more often. But before we dive into discussions about procrastination, let's not put off learning about you and your practice. Please tell us all about it.
I'm the founder of The College Spy. So I'm a college admissions consultant, and it's a small practice of a few people. And we help students with the entire college admissions process, from building the college list to completing an application that is going to help the student get accepted to college. And our focus is similar to other IECs, or independent educational consultants, in that we're trying to help students find their best fit.
Michelle, what did you do before you were a college consultant? You were a school counselor, right?
I was a school counselor. Yes. I left school counseling in 2015, partly for personal reasons. My husband got a virtual job before it was popular to have one, and we wanted to be location independent, and partly because I was just ready to make a change and to have my own company, and all the creativity that comes with that I was excited about. So that's when I opened up The College Spy.
You are very much ahead of the trend. I mean, obviously now most IECs do operate virtually, but you then, of course, you were ahead of the curve when COVID hit in terms of working with students online, I presume.
COVID was the best thing that happened to The College Spy. It was a terrible thing in a lot of ways, but before COVID, families were saying to me, how are you going to write an essay online? And now nobody asks that question. Actually, the kids weren't asking that. The parents were. But now, not at all. I don't see myself convincing people that virtual is great and better and than in person. They are just comfortable with the format.
Yeah, Mike and I have definitely seen that.
Yeah. We've seen in the coaching space, the teaching space, in so many areas where it's just expected now that if you want to work with the ideal coach or tutor for you, you can pick someone from anywhere. You don't have to stay local. There's a lot of value to local still, obviously, but it's also fantastic to be able to work with clients across multiple time zones.
It works for us, works really well for us. And our practice, we have 3 tiers of service. So we have this one-on-one high touch, and then we offer small group coaching for students. And we also offer workshops and parent classes and things that are very inexpensive. I don't think that everybody needs a high touch service. And then we have academic coaching too, because we work with a lot of students with learning disabilities, and academic coaching is similar to executive function coaching. So that's The College Spy.
Yeah. So then you're observing this concept of procrastination in multiple places, probably with your academic coaching practice as well as your college admissions work. And so let's sort of set the stage with, what's the reason why most students procrastinate? Or maybe you want to answer that in terms of, what do you think the reasons are the students procrastinate within their college admissions process?
I think the reason why most people procrastinate, including students, is to avoid negative moods. So, this is a little bit of my psychology background. I used to teach psychology at community college. So, people, when they're procrastinating, they are trying to get away from moods like anxiety, frustration, boredom, something that they're perceiving as negative. And what ends up happening is that when they put off a task, they feel a sense of relief from those negative moods. And that relief is rewarding. And if you remember from your Psych 101, or if you haven't taken it, I'll just tell you any behavior that is rewarded is going to be repeated. And so now, oh, you feel relief, so you're going to do it again and again. And then procrastination becomes this cycle where it can become very chronic.
That's interesting. I never thought about that as something like cyclical, that like you get a good feeling by doing it, which obviously would encourage you to continue doing it, right?
It's even not worse than that, but what happens also is the thing that you do when you're procrastinating. So for students, maybe it's texting friends or playing video games. That in and of itself is bringing about a reward in their brain. And so now what they're doing when they're procrastinating is also going to be repeated because they're getting that double reward of avoiding a negative mood and also doing something that they like. And next thing you know, applications are due in the example that we're talking about with college admissions, and this student has put it off for a long time to the point where they're going to experience stress.
We see this all the time on the education side, right, Amy, where a student doesn't do homework or doesn't take the practice test, not because they're lazy, not because they're careless, because they're afraid of something. They are trying to avoid stress. They might have perfectionist tendencies that they can't live up to, and they put a lot of pressure on themselves. It's just avoiding something negative. And not necessarily like, as much as the students that we all encounter, they really want to go to certain schools, get into certain programs, achieve certain goals, but it's the interstitial work to get there raises a lot of concerns. And procrastination it's a coping mechanism, and it's a maladaptive one.
Yeah, Michelle, in the college admissions process, I guess I would ask you, what are some of the common fears you think that students have that might contribute to procrastinating more?
Oh, so many. So they might be afraid of choosing the wrong school. So parents will be saying, you need to start researching colleges, or where do you want to go visit? Tell me so I can set up the trip. And students will put off researching and put off visiting because they're afraid, what if I pick the wrong school? They're highly concerned about that. Or what if I choose the wrong essay topic? So they don't want to brainstorm essay topics because it might be the wrong one. I have these three different types of procrastinators in my head. And the one that I'm describing to you is what I would refer to as the perfectionist, the student that is wanting everything to go well. This is the kid who doesn't want to get started on their work because what if they don't do a great job? And then they'll end up not handing it in and perhaps having a lower grade, but they've avoided their worry, which is not doing a great job. So that's one of the things that the perfectionist is especially worried about.
I see. I would think that kids, I guess what you're saying is there's just so many choices, right? Like the college admissions process, like as you're sort of describing it, there are so many choices, whether it's what schools on the list, what schools to visit, maybe what do I want to study? Like you start adding like choices upon choices upon choices. And so I'm almost wondering sometimes too, if it can contribute to sort of like decision paralysis. Like there are too many choices, so I don't want to make any choice.
Yeah, that's a good point, right?
Yeah. I definitely think that happens, especially if it's the kind of student that really likes to keep their options open, as opposed to the other type, which is I need to make a decision right now so that I can relax. And then sometimes those students will make a decision too early.
Well, that's interesting too, right? Like it's not to say that people who act immediately are always acting on the right timeline, but all things being equal, it's better to be ahead of your deadlines than behind on them, right?
I think it depends on what it is. There actually are positives to procrastination. Do you want to hear about them?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
I think that your listeners might be thinking, "Oh,
Parents
come
want to
on."
hear that for sure.
Yeah.
What are the benefits of my procrastinator kid?
Okay. So here's the first one. Time pressure, so you've put something off and now you have time pressure, can help students focus on a task. So it's that student who gets a burst of energy last minute and does a great job. That can be it. One positive. Of course, with the admissions process, or at least the application process, you need a lot of time. It's a lengthy process to fill out the application and write all of the essays. So you can't just have that one burst of energy at the very end. It doesn't work for that. But for other tasks, it might be. Sometimes the task itself could actually go away. I had this happen to me this week. I've been putting off contacting my doctor. She called me. Boom, done.
She
right?
took care of that problem.
It could happen, right? You put something off long enough and now you don't actually have to do it. You certainly get a lot done when you procrastinate, right? So sometimes my house will be very clean as I'm putting together the next podcast. I have my own podcast, the College Spy Podcast.
You're talking about those unintentional benefits.
Those
No, because
benefits.
you feel guilty you're not doing the thing. You do 10 other things.
That's right.
Right.
So that's where the productivity spikes, right?
And it does spike, but you're still avoiding that negative feeling you're having, whether it's frustration or boredom or anxiety about the thing you're avoiding. And then the final pro to procrastination is sometimes it gives you a chance to think through whether you want to do that task at all. And perhaps it's not the right thing for you and you choose not to do it, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to hear that there are some benefits because full disclosure, I can identify with some of those things you actually mentioned, not only in my prior academic life, but my current professional life.
I think there's still issues though, right? Because even if there's a benefit, right? A person is trying to avoid writing an important essay, and so they'll clean their room. We're looking at outcomes, but we're not thinking about that dark cloud that's hanging over all of the activity, the burden of knowing that you have to do this. Like I think that very few people, when they procrastinate, do so blithely unmindful of the pressures that are awaiting for them when they stop, right?
I think that's likely very true. And the cons for procrastination are so much stronger than the pros. Like they are things like feeling guilt,
Right.
shame, anxiety, depression, and lower productivity.
Yeah.
So certainly it's better not to procrastinate most of the time.
But it's important, right? We should be mindful of the reasons why students do, why people procrastinate. It's not just students, right? Everybody procrastinates
We know it's part of
about
all parts of
something.
life, right?
And so when it comes very specifically to college, right? What are the areas in which we should be focused on recognizing procrastination in the moment and then doing something to prevent it?
All of them, I think, because
There's a lot of steps,
there's
right?
so much.
In every
As I was,
step.
if everybody could see my face, I'm like thinking it through. I'm like, wait a minute. There's the whole build the college list. You don't want to put that off because you'll lose. It takes time to do that research and to do the visits, the applications and the essays. And I mean, it's such a big process. So there's so much of it that I find that my students who don't procrastinate, which when they're working with a college consultant, it's easier for them to avoid procrastination because we're breaking it down into small little tasks as opposed to just saying research colleges.
Right. You have like micro tasks. And then you might have deadlines, and then you have accountability built in because there's another person who you're going to meet or talk to that's going to say, well, what have you done about X? And that person is not your parent, right?
It's not, and that's important. And what I do in my work is I talk to the kids about those negative feelings that they're avoiding when they're procrastinating. So if they're feeling afraid, we can work through that a little bit. And I think this is where I'm bringing in that school counseling background into my work with students. And so they can be able to recognize, wait a minute, I'm putting this off because I'm worried I'm going to mess it up. And once they cannot name that, oftentimes it's easier to move past it.
You mentioned a bunch of tasks that students might procrastinate with, or the things they have to do in the college admissions process. I was actually thinking to myself, I wonder, do you notice if any one of those particular tasks seems to be more commonly the task students put off? I mean, I have a suspicion of what it would be, but I'm wondering if you observe any trends with what's the one thing that most kids do procrastinate with within college admissions.
They put off researching colleges. They put off essays, whether those are the Common App essay, the main essay, or supplemental essays. And the other thing they put off is asking teachers for letters of recommendation, because I encourage them to do that at the end of junior year in the spring. And they put that off. They're very uncomfortable asking for those letters.
Those three things, which do you think, can you name one of them that maybe is the most likely to be the thing that kids will put off sort of more universally? Or is it it varies?
It does vary depending on the student. I mean, some students are strong writers or they like to write, so they might be less likely to put that off, but more likely to put off research. Sometimes they put things off when they don't know what to do and they're feeling some kind of confusion. And that's where I can come in and help and debrief. Well, you didn't do your homework. Let's find out why. And sometimes finding out why is just like, let's do it now together, right? And then I can see where they're struggling and try to intervene so that they can work more independently in the next task that I'm assigning them to do.
Does procrastination look the same in every student?
No. It doesn't look the same. So I told you about the perfectionist who doesn't want to make a mistake, but we also have the student who I think of as like, that kid who it has to be their way and their idea. Like if they're being told by somebody else, whether it's a teacher, a parent, a college consultant to do it, they're like, no, I don't want to do that because it was, or this is also the student, they don't want to play the game. They're not going to do anything just for college admissions purposes.
Like a maverick of some sort. A free thinker. They want to be perceived that way. They don't want to follow anybody's system or do it just because they're supposed to.
Yes, that student, they'll struggle to do things like play the admissions game a little bit. So that could look like doing an extracurricular activity because that's related to another one. So they're building a theme on their essay, on their application. Or if you or their parent come up with an essay topic for them that might be really good, they didn't think of it, so it's not a good one. It has to come straight from them. Sometimes students will avoid procrastination, this type of student especially, if they won't procrastinate if there's an immediate consequence. So, which is different from the perfectionist, where it's not about the consequence so much as their own feelings. And then there's the student who's just bored, right? So I work with a lot of students with ADHD, but it's not always students who are diagnosed with ADHD, where something isn't engaging to them, and therefore it's difficult for them to get the assignment, whatever it is, done because it's just not engaging, and something else, maybe it's video games, it could be anything, is engaging, and they'll focus on that. Those kids will put everything off till last minute.
So what do you think are some of the things that, parents can do, or even counselors can do, let's say, to help these procrastination-prone students manage this seemingly overwhelming task of applying to college?
Well, the first thing is to understand why they're procrastinating, because that will help the person trying to help them just feel calmer and a little more in control of how they can potentially help. But I do have some things that I do with students that parents can also do. So one of them is, do you remember Newton's first law of motion? Like an object that's in motion tends to stay in motion unless there's some force like friction, right? Just get started.
Oh,
so
100%,
tell a student,
action begets action.
just take an action. 2 minutes, you're going to start researching colleges, or you're going to find the website. Just get started, and sometimes that will lead to the next thing, as opposed to assigning an hour-long project that they have to do, which they're going to put off. Another suggestion is to take the task, whatever it is, and break it into very small, manageable, understandable steps. So I have an example for you. Let's say the student has to brainstorm an essay topic. Instead of saying, come up with some essay topics after reading the prompts, what I do with students is, we're going to read the prompts. That's all we're going to do. We're going to read them and analyze them. And then we're going to think about, what do we actually want the colleges to know about you? What is important for them to know? Make a list. What are the personal qualities you want to highlight? Make a list. What stories might show that you have in your life show these qualities, right? What are the examples? Make a list. So it's not this big brainstorm. It's more, let's break this into these tiny tasks. Another one is just planning for distractions. Put the phone in the other room. Make sure you have your snacks right in front of you. Or if for some students, it might be, don't work at home. Go to the library right after school. Something different like that. I think I have one more tip for you. Hang on a second. I wrote them all down because I wanted to make sure I had them all. Use a calendar, but it's not enough to just say to kids, you need to use your calendar. They actually have to be taught how to use it. And
that is a core life skill that if students haven't learned by the time they get to senior year, they definitely they require guidance on calendar and like what you're talking about with all breaking things into steps and doing action. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get done. If it's on the calendar and they actually look at it, they're more likely to say, okay, it's time to do a little work.
The other thing is just listing everything you have to do on your calendar, so you can have an understanding of where there's space to get things done. Because a lot of times students, especially the one that's the easily bored student, they have a distorted sense of time. So they might believe there's enough time. They might not even know they're procrastinating. They think there's plenty of time later. Why should I do this so early? Well, if everything's on the calendar, they can see it. So.
What's funny is a lot of the things that you're talking about, we observe in students just in general academic life with like executive functioning. So it's interesting as you describe sort of these strategies, it's very clear, like we always talk about how test prep prepares you for college, right? Mm-hmm. But the college admissions process prepares you for college, and that there's so many skills, if you don't have them, that can really be like learned or acquired when you approach this process like really intentionally and deliberately. Do you notice that with students at all?
I do. And people will often ask me what I'm most proud of. This comes up a lot. Like oftentimes they're seeking outcomes from me, like, oh, such and such many College Spy students got into these types of selective colleges. But for me, I'm most proud when the student, because they all get in places that that are great fits for them. Students are happy when they leave the College Spy, so we get the outcome. But I'm most proud when they learn the skills that they need, that I know that once they're at college, they can implement them there.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Well, we've covered a ton regarding procrastination. Are there any final points that we should be aware of in the evil intersection of procrastination and college admissions?
There is one more thing I do want to mention. So sometimes I'll hear from other professionals or parents like this idea of natural consequences. If the student doesn't do their work or they put it off, so now they didn't do as great of a job because they ran out of time, so be it. They're not going to get into the school they want to go to. And I do have an opinion about that. I think natural consequences are appropriate for lots of scenarios, but I don't think that they're appropriate for college admissions, because what I've seen with my students, especially working with so many neurodivergent students, is that they might not be ready now when it's time to think about college and apply, but by the time it's time to go, they will be ready and they will have built the skills. So let's not implement natural consequences in this case when the stakes are so high. So it's my opinion. Not everybody would
No,
agree.
that's a really valuable point, especially when we're talking about teenagers, adolescents whose brains are still developing, who are still maturing, and the long lead time between the beginning of the college application process and the first day of school, right? Like they are different people by then, and this is a process. That's a very humane point to make, Michelle. I think we could probably talk with you for hours on this topic. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go to my website, thecollegespy.com.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Tests and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.